In this video, I am talking about Snoke and some interesting information that was just leaked by Pablo Hidalgo. What is up, YouTube? It's Josh. This is the Den of Nerds. I'm sitting down with James from the Rebel Scum Podcast. James, how are you?
Hey, how's it going? Thanks for having me on again.
Yeah, of course. You guys love when James and I talk Star Wars. We love talking Star Wars, so it's a really cool, copacetic thing. But right now we're going to talk about our main man, Pablo Hidalgo, because he just keeps giving away the farm, as it were, and telling everybody everything about Star Wars. This latest bit, he's talking about Snoke, and he said online, essentially, that because of a line from the Force Awakens novel, that it is confirmed in canon that Snoke is not human and never was a human. So, what does that mean, James? What does it mean that he is not?
Well, it means, we talked about this a little while ago, that it means that he is not Mace Windu, he is not Boba Fett, and he is not Anakin Skywalker.
Or Ezra Bridger, or Gallius Rax, or many, many other theories. Yeah. It pretty much wipes out, I would say, 80%, maybe even 90% of the Snoke theories. So...
Yeah, he said a lot, and he said a lot at, I can't remember what convention it was over the weekend, but it was I think it was in Mexico or somewhere, and he was speaking Spanish, and he claims that a lot of it was lost in translation, that he didn't actually say what the translator said he was saying, and I would really like to hear the audio from that, and I can't speak Spanish, but figure out what he said there, too. If he actually did, because I don't know if you've heard any of those. Have you heard?
No, I think it was, I was just watching episode 44, and you guys were talking about it a little bit.
Yeah, so it's a little bit off track here, but it has to do with Pablo Hidalgo and what he's been saying lately, because he said stuff about Luke and Leia have a meeting, but he called them the galaxy's twins, or the twins of the galaxy, or something like that, something to that effect. And then he backpedaled, and he said, no, I didn't actually say that. The translator misquoted me. And he said that for a few things that he said that weekend. So he's been talking a lot about Star Wars, like you said.
Yeah, and it's funny is like we did that video where it was on your channel where he was tweeting us as we were recording, and we were kind of like reading it out live. And in that video, and it pertains to this topic, he literally said that Qui-Gon and the Whill's stuff and the teaching that he had ended up in Clone Wars, which is canon. And so I immediately was like, so those are the Whills, talking about the Force priestesses? And he said, no, I didn't say that. Whill's stuff and the training, and definitely Qui-Gon learned something from Whill's, ended up in the Clone Wars. Well, here's the thing about that, Pablo. He's there on the planet talking to Yoda, getting him to learn from the Whills. This has to do with the training, so those are the Whills. Shut up, you confirmed it. So basically, we're living in this crazy world now, because here's the thing, guys, for everyone listening, James and I are on this train of thought that we believe Snoke is a Whill, either a fallen Whill, a member of the Whills. He is tied to the larger Star Wars and Cosmic Force thing that is out there. So, James, why do you think Snoke is a Whill, and what does that mean for him as a character?
For me, this started back with Aftermath Empire's End, when I first read that book, and I was reading it, and they kept having this dark force or entity or something calling out to Palpatine and the acolytes of the Beyond, but never Vader. But they kept calling out to this. And also when you read the Force Awakens novelization, I believe, when Leia says references how Snoke was there when she was pregnant with Kylo or with Ben, and how Snoke has always been kind of there, hovering over, watching Ben, and had his eye on Ben the whole time. And if you look at it, there's no character that this matches up with, because when you read the Force Awakens novelization, you read Bloodline, there is no Snoke character whatsoever. So if you take the fact that he's been around for that long, the rise and the fall of the Galactic Empire also, you take that, and then you take this dark force calling towards Palpatine, it seems to me that they're trying to at least hint at us thinking that Snoke is from somewhere out there, and he could be this dark force entity, which led me down the path to believing that perhaps he is a fallen Whill, or just a Whill. But a fallen Whill I thought would be more interesting, kind of like how we were talking earlier about how he could be the Satan character to the
Yes.
Star Wars universe.
Right, and so I guess I'll go into that a little bit. So my thing is this: if you look at the Force as a religion and or God, and the Whills have something to do with that, they are somehow linked to that power, and they're conscious. So they're conscious, and they have a link to that power. The whole thing with the Satan story, and I didn't originate this, I can't remember who was coming up with this idea, but I really like it, is that the Satan story is this angel, and he's flawless, gorgeous, strong, and jealous. He's incredibly jealous of the love that God has of humankind. And because of that, he falls from grace, and his whole goal is to show God that he's wrong and to corrupt mankind and to show God that he's wrong and that these people are super flawed and all these different things. So you could think of it this way: if the Force and the Whills are giving the gift of the Force to organic beings, the living Force, and we're giving all these great gifts, and this character Snoke is jealous of this and thinks that humankind needs to be shown, its true colors need to be shown, and they are not deserving of this gift. You have this situation where he falls from grace, is scarred, much like the same way that Satan is, not only by Michael, but just by the corruption of the power. That you have this character that his whole purpose is to try to show the Force, or try to show the Whills, that humanity can't be trusted. So what does he do? He corrupts Kylo. He's trying to corrupt the way that they use the Force and show that it's really, really evil. So that's kind of the theory and the headcanon that I'm playing around with. So it's very possible that Snoke is this fallen Whill. We also got recently, just because we're doing the Snoke thing, we just got to look at the Lego picture, right? And this is something I haven't covered on the channel, but there's clearly the picture that confirms the gold robe. You can't see the ring on there, but you can definitely see that the gold robe was true, which leads us to believe that Snoke is into looking ornate. He's got this ring. He's into looking good. He likes to ball out. So how does that fit? I mean, the Emperor was not that way. This dude walked around in rags. You know what I mean? He valued power. He didn't value the look of things. So what do you think about that? How could that tie into the Whill thing?
That we were talking about this before we started recording too. That's the way I look at this now, and we talk about this on episode 44. Is when those Vanity Fair pictures came out, and we saw the Canto Bight casino gang, like crew, and how they're the polar opposite of the Cantina from A New Hope. They're all ritzy, and they love their designer clothes, and they're definitely high scale people. Perhaps Snoke is, however he finds his way in, has entered that part of the galaxy, and that's his facade in there, and that's what he's wearing to manipulate from the inside, having already fallen. I can't. There has to be something to that ring, that black kyber crystal ring. It's not on the Lego toy, but Brock and I looked at it yesterday on the show. You couldn't put a ring on a Lego hand anyway.
Right,
it's basically a cup. Like you just couldn't do it even if you tried. So the ring, I think, whether they get into it in the film or not, I think is going to be a big part of Snoke's character. And that might be something you just read about in a book. He might just have the ring on him, because you never know how much exposition they're going to go into in a Star Wars film. You don't know.
Yeah.
But I can't. It's the Whill, and what he's wearing is tough. And we looked at some pictures from the Mortis episodes of Clone Wars,
Yep.
and he somewhat resembles the father.
Yep.
In a bit, and the daughter wears a lot of gold.
Right. Yeah. It's, to me, the only thing that it goes back to that whole angelic thing, right? I mean, the angels and the way that they're portrayed is they're these beautiful creatures, ornate, either armor or, the wings. The halo itself is pure gold. So the idea that there's, the fanciness or the elegance of these outfits is associated with the godliness of them as characters, that could be the case. I mean, if he's essentially a fallen angel and he's ugly, right? Because he was not always that way, or presumably, because in the Art of the Force Awakens, it says that they wanted him to be beautiful at one time, and then he was kind of scarred. So that could be a way for him to get back his grace a little bit, to look a little bit better. I also think that if he's really good at manipulating, which we know that he is, if anything, that's the only thing we know about him, is that he's an incredible manipulator. He knows that looking good will get you into certain places, like, you know what I mean? So perhaps he's just trying to establish that I'm the ruler of the galaxy thing. Yeah, I don't know. Here's an interesting question. The last question I want to do for this video. If Palpatine actually believed, he goes into it in the Tarkin novel, he thinks that it's possible that whatever this thing is that he's communing with, it is not only the dark side, but it is possibly the source of his power. And Palpatine was obsessed with power. He learned from Mother Talzit. He dabbled in all sorts of different areas of the dark side. It wasn't just Sith teaching that he was into. He was into all of it. So, do you think that it's possible that all of Palpatine's power was given to him by this Satan-like character, and that what do you think that does to the legacy of Palpatine?
I think that fits right into. I'll get into the legacy in a second, but that fits right into your Satan analogy perfectly, with him trying to corrupt mankind or galaxy kind or whatever you want to call it. I think that fits. Yeah, that's right in there. The legacy of Palpatine, I don't think it affects him too much, because unless they go in a way that cheapens how powerful it was. I mean, Palpatine still had to learn how to become powerful, and he still had to be able to manipulate, to use those powers, and he was. And you know, my thing with Palpatine is, and I've said this, I think, on one of our videos and on my videos, is I'm good with where Palpatine is. Like, I'm happy in his place in the franchise. I'm happy in the story arc. I don't need more. I don't need less of Palpatine. Like, I'm completely satisfied with Palpatine. So I think if you use Snoke to be the reason that Palpatine gained his powers, I don't have an issue with that, because Palpatine served his purpose for me, and I'm good. And Snoke he doesn't have to be bigger and badder, but there has to be another threat as equal, at least, to Palpatine threat-wise, and I think that's a good way to go, personally.
Yeah.
I'm totally on board with that. Like I said, it fits what you said about the fallen Whill so well. That's a great point.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing. I'll segue into one of the things we talked about off air too. Would be the last point I make. But you know, my whole thing is I'm 50-50 on it. I'm full Brock on it, because I'm thinking like. Part of me thinks that it diminishes his character a little bit, because he accomplished so much on his own. I mean, like, dude, he literally took over the galaxy on his own. He's just some kid from Naboo, you know what I mean?
But would that diminish that, though? Is it still him doing it, though? Or are you saying that Snoke put himself inside him?
Yeah, like, what I'm saying is the same way he's corrupted Kylo is the same way that he would have corrupted Sheev, a young Sheev. And Sheev could have ended up maybe being a good character, or maybe not as evil. But here's what's crazy. So when you were just talking about the Vader thing, so that voice wasn't calling to Vader. So there would seem that, because the theory right now is that Anakin was already starting to turn. He was having, you know, a lot of conflict within him, just like Luke says. So within that, the dark side power of Snoke, this devil character, was not able to fully commune with him. That's why, like, Palpatine, you know, knew about this thing, Vader did not. So, but if that's the case, then how was he able to corrupt Kylo Ren? Because if he's in Kylo's ear, and Kylo has the good side in him, because you can't imagine that this kid just starts out a total a-hole. He would have to have some innocence, have to have some light side in him. So, and Snoke even speaks to that fact. He speaks to how he loves the fact that he's an ex-Jedi. So, I mean, what do you think about that? Like, how was he able to not communicate with Vader if he's that thing, but he was able to communicate with Kylo?
Maybe he doesn't communicate with Vader. The idea of because Vader was turning is, I mean, it's a good one. It makes sense for all we know. But maybe he just didn't, or whatever Snoke is, just didn't go to Vader because he knew that it was too late for Vader. Go to the Palpatine, get Palpatine to do what he needs to do,
right.
Set everything up, and then go after Anakin's kin.
Yeah.
Anakin's kin. Yeah.
Yeah, it's possible.
Go that way. Yeah, find someone and then he's been around Kyle since he was a fetus, so he could be from him from the start to manipulate him easier. And if you go on the Wikipedia page, it says that Snoke took a liking or an interest to Ben Solo because of how strong he was in the light and the dark.
Right. Yep, and you know, it could be a proximity thing too. Like, maybe Snoke was so far away at that point, he could only communicate to people that were really into the dark side, like Palps.
Yeah.
And as he got closer from, you know, the eclipse coming and picking him up or whatever, that could be really cool. But I want to leave everybody with this thought, because it's kind of an interesting thing. So, if Snoke is this Satan-like character, and if he's trying to prove to the Whills that mankind does not deserve the gift of the Force, then it is possible that he does not want to take over the galaxy, that he does not want to create order the way that Palpatine did, but he instead wants complete oblivion, which I think would be very interesting if this character wants to take over the galaxy and then just watch it burn. Because you'll have this moment with all the villains that they're like, oh shit, he's literally the devil, we screwed up, like this is bad. And also that could mean Thrawn fighting with the Resistance, which I would love. But what do you think about that?
I love that. I don't even want to expand on that. I'm totally down with that. Sort of make a boring conversation out of it. But
well, we kind of talked about it off air.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah.
That is just. I love that whole idea. I mean, whether that ends up being it or not, I kind of, as much as I really like it, I almost don't want it to be it, because I want to go in and just be shocked by everything. You know, I just want to. Like, oh my god, I didn't see that coming. Which I think we're going to get a few of those, knowing Rian Johnson's homework.
True, and he's not going into Snoke. From what we understand, Rian Johnson is not going into Snoke, at least as a character. Snoke will be in there, but...
Yeah, can I just interject for 1 second on that thought? Because he said he's not going to go into Snoke, but there's a Snoke Lego figure. He's going to have a ring.
Oh, Snoke's going to be all throughout this film.
That's the thing.
I think what he's saying is, I'm not going to explain him at all.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are taking it, though, as he's not going to be in it as much. But I think I'm with you. I think he's going to be in the whole thing, but it's going to be like the Emperor, where we don't need to, as much as we like talking about Snoke, and there's so much to know about Snoke, Snoke is one of the characters that you really don't need to know. He is the leader of the bad guys.
Yep.
And that's really all you need to know.
That's really all you need to know for the story, for sure. I agree with you.
Exactly. I mean, the rest of it's fascinating, and that's why we're talking about it, but that's what works so well with Snoke more than Ben or Rey. Snoke is just the leader of the bad guys.
Yep, he's just the leader of the bad guys, and he is not any human. So sorry guys, that ruins a lot of your theories out there. But you know what? Put your thinking caps on, come up with some cool theories, and tweet them at me and James, because we love talking about this stuff. We love talking Star Wars. That's all I've got for this video. Stay tuned to the channel. As soon as we get our hands on the Vanity Fair article, we're going to do that part 2 that we promised over on Rebel Scum channel, where we break down that article. So I don't know, I'm thinking about going to New York tomorrow and getting it, but I really shouldn't, but I'm thinking about it.
It's a $250 plane trip for me, so maybe I'll meet you there. We'll see.
Yeah, you should do it.
I should.
But in either case, guys, thanks for watching. As always, like this video if you thought it was pretty cool. Subscribe to the channel, and go subscribe to Rebel Scum to get all the Star Wars content that you can handle and beyond. As I always say, I hope you're having an awesome and nerdy day. See ya!